Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Color Mixing with Chris. I'm Chris Arp and we are here at Createch's Colors Studio. And today we're going to talk about yet another candy color. And this one is a little different. We actually had, again, another request with regards to mixing a pink, a candy pink specifically. And if you guys are familiar with our Candy 2.0 line, you know we do have Sunset Magenta, and really that's the closest we have in terms of a pink red shade. But it is a very rich color, and it kind of has more of that blue shade, kind of a red hue to it once you get past that pink, which is the initial application. One way you could alleviate that would be to really, really overextend that color, but still you're still going to kind of layer that and get more of a red shade color, a richer color. So, in order to do this, we kind of played around, we came up with some different ideas, we did a little test spraying, and we figured out that mixing our Sunset Magenta and our Fluorescent Pink together actually do a really good job at balancing each other and still maintaining the transparency of a candy, right? That's the entire purpose of this, is to be able to build color up and still see through it, not have it's semi-opaque or even an opaque color, because they kind of wash that out. It works really well. We still kind of have the same light stability between both products. You know, fluorescents, we always say, are constantly in a state of degrading, so they are going to fade a little bit, and our candies still are, you know, even though you're mixing them with our UVLS product, you still kind of have a limited outdoor and direct sunlight constantly in terms of the shelf life. But we found that works really well, and it's really one way. It's kind of a little unconventional in terms. I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of questions on this and why we're mixing it, but this is not. I mean, this is not necessarily the way that if you were doing something massive, but it could certainly work for you in terms of the project that you're doing if you wanted this particular color. So the way this is going to work is we're going to mix 4 to 1, and this time it's actually 4 parts of our fluorescent pink to 1 part Sunset Magenta. And it seems like a lot, but again, side by side, you can see, again, our candies are super concentrated, and the fluorescents are certainly on the weaker side. So again, that's why this works well, is because these colors are very transparent by themselves, you know, without having any kind of a filler to create opacity. So that's why it works really well. When you spray this thinner, it doesn't have a like grainy kind of a stippled effect. So they complement each other really well. So what we're going to do is get right into it, and actually we'll go ahead and mix. So we're going to do 4 parts to 1. So I'm going to go, that's the start of the mix, right? So that's right off the bat. I'm going to go right to my 4 on my cup. So we go 4 right there. And then to the 1 with the candy. And again, we always recommend straining these, any of these products, and especially the candies. If you're straining it, use a 125 micron strainer. That's what we're using. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and mix these together, and I'll strain it afterwards. And I'm also using a PPS cup when I spray this, so there is a filter in there, but it's a little bit larger in size. So that's why I always recommend straining at least the candy with a 125 first. So that right there is a 4 to 1 mix. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and bump this up. I'll do it in a separate cup. Again, the key to making this work is going to be overextending that color. When we say overextending, we mean kind of, it's a fancy way to say dilute the color without actually just using a reducer to really thin it out. So you need something that has body. And again, our 4050 is our carrier, right? Our candy carrier. So this is actually going to be 12 to 1. If you guys have watched other of the candy videos, my standard, my go-to for spray gun application is always right 6 to 1. Sometimes I've talked about it, our more concentrated colors or richer, darker colors like our marine blues, ultramarine, our brandywines, or even our emerald green. They're a little bit stronger in terms of their concentration, so we'll go 8 to 1. But this time this is going to be 12 to 1. So I'm going to go ahead and, so what I'm going to do is double it. This cup only goes up to 8. So I'm going to go to the 6 for my first one, right there. And then I actually got to mix this up. So let me grab a mixing stick and we'll be right back. Okay guys, welcome back. Grab my stick. And actually this is a good time to actually talk about this. This is a plastic mixing stick. A lot of times you have wood mixing sticks, the wood paddles. With the candies, because they are so thin and they are a dye, a lot of times they have a tendency to absorb into the wood. And anytime you're using a water-based product, it's always a recommended or at least a preferred method to mix with a plastic kind of a mixing stick. So kind of food for thought for that. For this, it's not super imperative that you do it, but just keep that in mind. It just helps everything stay consistent in terms of if you're mixing the color and a little bit of that paint color, that toner, that pigment gets absorbed into a wooden stick, it's not the same kind of concentration. So I have my line right here at 6:1. Before I go do that, I'm going to actually make sure these are all mixed together. This is my mixture of the fluorescent and my candy. Again, I'm making sure that all the sides here, I don't see any discrepancy of the color between the fluorescent and the candy, Sunset Magenta. So that's key to make sure that this is all consistent and even throughout the mix. Okay. I'm happy with that. That looks good. All right, so now, like I said, I'm just going to go to I went to 6. I'm going to go to the 1. So what I'm going to do is go half of that line, and that should basically give me a 12:1 ratio, which is right there. So it wasn't a whole lot, but you'll see how quickly it changes that clear. And this is the same deal, right? When you're mixing this, make sure you get all that 40-50, so any of that clear kind of blue tinted paint that's in this cup. And like we've mentioned before in the other candy videos that we do, we say always let this sit for about 10 minutes before you're ready to spray, to really let everything marry together and get acclimated. And one of the other things, actually talking about mixing together, because I went so steep on the reduction with 40-50, this is going to have quite a bit more body in terms of thickness, right? So it's a little thicker than what I would want to see for spraying a candy. For this, we're spraying, I'm going to use my LPH 80 with a 1-2. This is going to be a little thick. It's going to be a little restricted when I'm using my spray gun. So I'm going to go ahead and add about 5% reducer for this. A lot of times, like I've mentioned before, 5% is basically like that much right there, just to help the flow. You can see immediately as I mix this up, you can see the difference. I'll pull the stick out, you guys can see. It's just a little better flow. Just a nice, even flow. Everything's consistent off the stick. If it's dripping, you don't want to have that. You want to make sure it's not over-reduced, because if it is dripping, then you're going to have an issue with that. So make sure, again, the key to doing this, really making sure that this is totally mixed together. So we're going to let this sit. I'm going to get it loaded in my PPS cup. This is a 125 micron strainer. We'll get it in here. It's going to take a couple minutes to pass, or not a couple minutes, but it's take a few seconds for this to pass through that strainer. So I'm going to go get my spray gun, and when we come back, we'll start spraying some candy. Okay, guys, it's been about 10 minutes. The candy's ready to go. This is my LPH 80, like I mentioned. It's an E4 cap, so a big fan pattern with a 1-2 tip. This is a great gun for spraying smaller amounts of candy. I just really wanted to cover quickly, I kind of left that out. If you've watched our other candy videos, we kind of have right in front of me our 4 staples of our ground coats. The reason a candy looks so good is because you have a metallic base for that candy to go over the top and kind of create that glitter sparkle effect. So starting from closest to me, this is our metallic charcoal. This is our silver sealer. This is our metallic gold. And this is our metallic white coarse. So those will be the 4. If you watch the other candy videos we do, we kind of always stay with these 4 bases. So I'll wheel this little table right out of the way, and we'll start spraying some candy. Now what I did right before we started was I just wanted to show you guys, this is just over a black and white card, a drawdown card for concentration. This is essentially 1 coat. So it kind of shows you how thin in terms of color richness that this is going to be, and that's how it's going to be the most effective to maintain that pink color, not go to that red magenta shade like we were talking about. So it works really well. We're going to go ahead, we'll start with the metallic white coarse, and we'll go through each color. Nice and even, same distance. I got about a 50% overlap. So every pass is halfway over my last pass, 50% overlap. Nice and consistent, you can see right there. Nice and even with no blotch. That's exactly what you're going for. That first coat is paramount in terms of the consistency, because if there's any kind of discrepancy in that first coat, any kind of issue, you're going to see it all the way through to your last. This is over the gold. Kind of a cool color, has that rose gold effect. This is our silver sealer. And then last we have our charcoal metallic. All right, we'll let these dry up about 10 minutes. Again, I don't know if you have seen the other videos. I keep talking about other videos. The key to this and the key to your success when you're spraying candies, along with all of our paints, is to make sure these are totally dry between coats. So you want this to be 100% dry. It should be dry to the touch. So if it feels a little sticky, just wait a little bit longer, and that's going to be more beneficial to you in the long run. So the key to making everything work is dry between coats. So we're going to let this blow for a little bit, about 10 minutes. We'll come back, we'll do our second coat, and we'll probably do 4 coats over all these. So we'll see you guys in a little bit. All right, guys, welcome back. We went ahead and did 3 more coats over all the top of those samples you saw me do the first coat on. And right before I go ahead and put a 2K top coat over this, a 2K clear, which is, by the way, a clear coat that we recommend for all of our candies. A 2K is really going to give you that depth and that ultimate shine that you really need to have to see the true effect of that candy. So don't be alarmed also if you don't really see the full effect in terms of that metallic that's underneath these until you put that top coat over it, and that's really going to just make everything just sparkle and dance. So real quick before we go, we'll go through each one of these. This was the metallic white coarse, right? 4 coats over that. This was a color that actually surprised me. It looks really cool. This was over the metallic gold. So 4 coats over a metallic gold. Really cool how this turned out. And I actually have a sample here at the end. I kind of had 2 that I just did 2 on. But this is our silver sealer. Very close to the metallic white, right? But a little bit darker, only because of the nature of the silver, right? So really the metallic white coarse and the silver are going to be real similar, with the silver being slightly darker than a metallic white coarse. And then we have the dark end of the spectrum. That's our metallic charcoal, our Wicked metallic charcoal. And then at the end here, I just had another gold shape, and I just did 2 coats over the gold, right? So this is 2 coats of the same color over the gold. So here it is over gold with 4 coats. But you can really see the difference in color. I thought this was just, again, I was really surprised at how this looked, and it kind of has that really cool kind of a rose gold kind of effect to it. Really pleasantly surprised at what this looked like after spraying it. So again, just that 2 coat kind of has, you still have the shimmer of the gold and a little bit of that pink tone. So I'm going to clear this one up as well just to see what it looks like. But really cool. I thought that was really cool. So kind of a happy accident in terms of figuring something out that might be used down the road. But speaking of being used, real quickly again, I just want to kind of emphasize and stress that keep in mind we're using 2 products really at a tint strength, right? So the fluorescent is kind of, like I mentioned earlier, is already kind of weak in terms of the concentration, and that tint strength is going to actually cut it down even more. The fact that we are mixing with the UVLS is going to help with an added benefit of the UV blocker that's in there. But in the long run, realistically, this is something that would be better suited for smaller projects, like I kind of mentioned, like RC car bodies, or even cosplay type stuff like that. Something that isn't going to be constantly being bombarded, by outdoor light. So this is going to be something that I was going to do on a motorcycle or a car or something like that. Again, I kind of come up with a different scheme. Maybe have a base coat that I would have more of like a magenta color or like a pink, light pink, and then candy over the top of that to kind of get the same effect. But in terms of a candy that's kind of easy to spray and easy to spray over different bases and get different colors, this is certainly the ticket for that when we kind of figured this out. But again, it's just better suited for limited UV exposure in terms of that, just to kind of keep that fade to a minimum. So I am going to go ahead and mix up a little bit of 2K clear, and when we come back, we'll have these guys outside, and we'll do a little bit of a show and tell again outside in the sun. You can really see what these are going to do with that clear outside in the light. So stick around, we'll be right back. All right, guys, we are outside. We had to wait one day. We had a pretty gnarly day yesterday, so we had to wait a day for some sun, but here we go outside. This is our metallic white course, our silver sealer, the charcoal metallic. There's all 4 coats and 2 coats of 2K urethane top coat. A little bit of our actually American Icon clear. Love that stuff. We've been using it quite a bit lately. Really digging it. And I left out the 2 golds just because these by themselves are really cool. It's this light one that I did the 2 coats on. Kind of washes out in the sun, but you really get that side cast. It kind of has that pink kind of a tone to it, like a rosy gold. Really cool color. It's kind of one of those happy accidents like I talked about. It just kind of came out really, really cool. Really different from what I expected it to look like over gold, and here it is with 4 coats. So again, guys, really cool effect. Really easy to do. Just a simple ratio. So for this episode of Color Mixing with Chris, I am Chris Arpin. We're here at Createx Colors, and we will see you guys next time.